Well, MIdge Ure is a legend on the British rock scene. He's helped mastermind Live Aid and Band Aid with Bob Geldof, and he scored the second biggest selling single in British history with the song Do They Know It's Christmas. Not only that, but the songs he wrote for his bands Ultravox and Visage made them chart stars through the 80s. Fade to Grey and Vienna still top many people's favourite lists today. He's also played guitar for rockers Thin Lizzy. Today, MIdge Ure is still very much a working musician, touring the US and Europe constantly. On the eve of his concert tour to Australia, MIdge joins me on the phone now from his home in Bath. Welcome, MIdge. Lovely to meet you.
And you.
MIdge, I see that you actually grew up in Glasgow at the time that it had the reputation as being the toughest town in the world. How did that influence you?
I think it gives you a thick skin. There's something about, Glasgow was always a lovely place, but it did have its moments. It was a bit rough and ready, but it gives you a thick skin, which kind of prepares you for the music industry. I think one of the things I've learned over the years when I'm speaking to young musicians and they ask for advice, one of the things I've said to them is you try as much as you can not to believe anything anyone ever writes or says about you, whether it's good or bad. Because if it's good, you'll get a big head, and if it's bad, you'll get depressed. Just keep it somewhere in the middle and be glad that you're making music for a living. So I think growing up in Glasgow kind of prepares you for the setbacks and the knocks.
Sounds good. I read somewhere that you do give a lot of advice to young musicians, and that recently you've had to kind of renege on all the things that you've told them in the past because you feel that the advice that you're giving them is probably not quite as relevant for their future careers as it once was.
Well, I think the music industry has changed so much in the last 15 to 20 years since people started downloading music for free. Because the devastating knock-on effect is that there is no money to invest in, new, raw, young talent. So therefore, rather than finding, the next Kate Bush or the next Queen or the next Led Zeppelin or the next Jimi Hendrix, we're getting the next pop star. Because that's what sells. But it's always the interesting oddities in history that have come along and rattled our musical cages and made us sit up and think, wow, this is fresh and exciting. And without that, music will just get very, very stale. So when I've been asked in the past to come along to music colleges, in fact, the one that flipped my mind was I was at Paul McCartney's Liverpool Institute of Performing Arts that he set up with Sir George Martin, and the kids were all asking about multi-album deals and touring the world and all of that, and I was answering the questions about it, and I realised as I was saying it that most of these kids will never be in a position to have a multi-album deal because they don't really exist anymore. So I set myself a grueling task of touring America completely alone with no crew, no tour manager, nothing, and going show to show, driving myself, hiring the cars, doing the settlements, selling the T-shirts and the CDs and whatever, and documenting it, just to show them how difficult and how hard this task will be. And if that doesn't put them off, then they're cut out for the music industry as it stands today.
So was there $1 in it for you? Because, as you say, if you don't have a smash hit these days, you don't make any money out of being a recording artist. So you've got to pave the way with touring and playing concerts, yeah? And that's hard work. Yeah,
it's a very difficult thing, and it is incredibly hard work, especially in America. And I'm the same for you guys, where cities are so far apart. Every day is a 300-mile drive or whatever. As I said in a little documentary, at one point, no matter how well you plan this stuff, I found myself in Los Angeles, and the merchandising, the CDs and stuff that I had shipped to get there for the second part of the tour hadn't arrived in time. I'd done it 3 weeks earlier. It should have taken a week to get there, and I find that all the merchandise is 50 miles away at the weekends where I won't be able to get my hands on them for another couple of days. Now, not being able to sell CDs and merchandising and T-shirts and stuff that night at the show could have made the difference between making a profit and making a loss, for a young artist, or, paying for the hotel room that night. So it's a really, really, really fine line. So if you want to be in music, you have to be prepared that that's just how tough it is.
So you really have to be totally passionate about it and realistic that it may not work out the way you want. It's a grueling lifestyle, especially, I guess, as your testament to as you get older.
Well, it's difficult for anyone out there at any age, but I think it's probably most difficult for new artists because there's a catch-22 where you can't get the gigs if you don't have a record success, and you can't get record success without learning how to do it by playing the gigs. So it's a really difficult task out there. But I have to say it was tough, and it's not something I would choose to do again. I did it very specifically for that reason. When I tour, I've got my own my mini entourage, my own crew and stuff. So I don't have to sit down at the end of the night and work out the funds with the promoter. Someone else does that for me. So I'm in a kind of luxurious position.
If it was today that you were starting out, would you go for it again, or do you think you'd choose a whole other career path?
I think I would have chewed my arm off to do it again, because there is nothing better. As I say to my daughters, there is nothing better than finding something, a job that starts off as a hobby. Something that scratches your itch, something where you wake up every morning thinking, "Wow, I'm allowed to do this again today. How cool is that?" It's the best job in the world.
Yeah, I feel exactly the same about mine, but I realised very recently that you work so hard all your life, you take every gig that's coming your way to keep going because you don't know where the next one's going to come from. You hope that your reputation builds, that you get more and more popular, that you can travel with this work that's absolutely your passion, and all of a sudden you turn around and go, hey, but now I'm too old to enjoy it. I can't keep up the pace that it demands, right? That the sweet spot is very small.
But that's probably true of most careers, But what a joy you have doing it. It's an absolute joy. So yeah, we're the lucky ones.
Yeah. Tell us about those two earworms that, since listening to your music in preparation for this interview, have not left my skull. Fade to Grey and Vienna, they're just all pervasive. They have stood the test of time, and still just as good as the day you put them out.
Well, thank you for that. Sometimes by trying to make something different from what else is around you, you can sometimes create something. You can create, it's like dropping a pebble in the water, and you can create ripples and change things. So when we did Vienna was never designed to be a commercial success. It was a piece of music. It was a song. I remember arguing with the record company at the time who wanted to edit the song down. And I said, well, you can't. It's a piece of music. It starts, it builds, and it finishes. Yeah. And if it's 4 and a bit minutes long, that's how long it is. Editing is not going to make it any better or make it any more palatable to the radio. And lo and behold, radio picked it up and it resonated with people. Same with Fade to Grey. You have to do, as an artist, you have to go out there and create something that you think is interesting and hope that other people will get that. Hope that the machine that's somewhere between you creating the piece and getting it to the public does its job. And sometimes when it all works and it all gels and it all falls into place like a well-oiled machine, that happens. Other times, there are songs just as good as, if not better than, that never see the light of day because you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, or you're doing something that's too far removed from what people are used to hearing at that moment in time. So it's a kind of luck of the gods, really.
Yeah. Did you write Vienna because you fell in love with the city?
I'd never been to the city. It was pure imagination. But you know what it's like when you travel and you find yourself somewhere, and in a city somewhere or anywhere in the world, and you feel different because you're there. You're in a different frame of mind. And I thought, well, what was a nice, decaying romanticism. Where's a lovely place? And I'd read about Vienna, and I knew of its musical background and its cultural heritage and stuff. And I thought, well, if I find myself in Vienna and you're in this completely different frame of mind, and you meet someone or whatever, then you go back home and all disappears, just like going on holiday. You come back from holiday after 2 weeks away, you're having a wonderful time, and you come back, and 24 hours after you're back home, it's kind of a long-lost memory. It's just, it fades away, it just disappears. And that's what I kind of wrote about, you know, the idea of being this beautiful, opulent, wonderful place, very romantic, very atmospheric. And then in the cold light of day, it all changes because you're back in your dull, boring job, you know, doing your dull, boring life.
Yeah. Have you been there since?
I've been there many times, yes, and it is as beautiful as I said.
So you imagined
it
as it was. Exactly.
I did my research, and you know, and of course, when we did the video for it, subliminally, it was kind of like the movie The Third Man, which was all set in Vienna, which I'd completely forgotten about. So something's, you know, obviously sunk into my brain when I was much, much younger.
Yeah, it was a nice one. We're very glad it did. Hey, Mitch, your publicity says you're really comfortable with being a recovering alcoholic. How did you manage to get free?
With the help of strong family and friends around me. I think you just sometimes need it pointed out that you're just being a bit of a moron in the way you're acting, and it's an incredibly selfish thing. You know, you think you're not, you know, harming anyone around you. You're only harming yourself, and you're not. You're causing massive, you know, ongoing problems by doing this. So luckily, I was in a situation where I got the you know, proverbial slap round the ear and kind of wised up and sorted myself out.
Well, that's awesome that you have. If I Was a Better Man is the name of probably your most memorable song, and also the name of your autobiography. Is that a theme that interests you?
What if I was a better person?
Yeah.
I think so. I think we all do that. I think we must have doubts that you know, have we done enough? Have we done our thing? Have we, you know, in my case, a lot of it's to do with writing songs. You know, am I saying the right stuff? Am I without preaching to people and without, you know, turning into a quasi politician? Sometimes, you know, music is a great vehicle to vent your angst, and you do query it now and again. You sit and think, well, am I doing the right thing? Am I using whatever position I have in life to make the changes that I think need to be made? So yes, you know, if you were a better person, what would you do? You know, would you do things differently? You know, or is there a better version of you? You know, are you the best you can possibly be?
So are there still things on your bucket list that you want to achieve that will make you a better person?
I've never had a bucket list, ever. I've never had a list. I've never had a plan. You know, I have got this far in life by just, you know, by working, by being very vigilant about what I do, you know, and probably because I love it, you know, because I'm still absolutely consumed by music and the desire to create and make something more interesting than what I've made before. So I think just having that kind of pushes you forward. But there's never been a plan. I don't know what's in the cards for me, you know, next year or the end of this year. You know, I know that there are shows, there are dates that get booked in a year in advance. That's fine, I know about that. But life-wise, I don't know what's round the corner.
You just go with the flow.
So you just have to do the best. You've got to go with what you're doing right now. You go with your gut instinct.
So what are we going to see from you in concert? Are we going to see all the old hits as well as some new stuff? I also read that one of your long-held ambitions was to record an album of cover versions of songs that have influenced you. Are we going to see any of those? What are we going to see?
Well, the album, the tour is called Something from Everything, and that's kind of what it is. I'm looking back over the entire body of work, back to maybe as far back as 1978. So I'm looking at my band, The Rich Kids, when I moved from Glasgow to London in 78. I'm looking at Visage, so, you know, Fade to Grey and stuff, so those years, which led me on to Ultravox. So I'm playing quite a few Ultravox songs, obvious ones, as well as some that maybe never been performed outside of Ultravox, and solo material. So it's something like 14 albums, and I'm going to try and play at least one thing from every album. And so yes, it's kind of hit-filled, but hopefully very interesting at the same time. I don't want to do just a greatest hits tour, because that's of no interest to me whatsoever. So playing some of these tunes is a challenge for me, but it's working incredibly well. We started it in Europe about 4 or 5 months ago. So it's an interesting way of putting these songs over and people hearing them.
Yeah, well, we can't wait to hear it. Down Under again, you've got a love affair going on with Australia, and Australia certainly reciprocates. So travel safe, and we'll see you all over Australia very, very soon. MIdge Ure, thank you so much for your time.
An absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me.